The more I try to lean in to follow Jesus, the more exciting my life gets.
Hey everyone, this is Kim O'Neill from the Every Day is a New Day podcast and live show, and you're listening to the Going North podcast with the hilarious DomBrightmon. Be sure to subscribe to his show so you don't miss any episodes, and remember, every day is always a new day.
New episode, new review highlight, and this is a 5-star review left by N Lama Lama. And their review is titled Vault of Knowledge. Outstanding podcast. Tons and tons of episodes on so many different topics. I especially like the VA episode. Gotta love those good old virtual assistants. Well, be sure to check out the rest of the backlog of this wonderful podcast after you listen to today's episode. Thanks a bunch, and Lama on leaving a 5-star review about the show. And if you too like something about the show, be free to leave a review on goingnorthpodcast.com or Apple Podcasts, letting us know what you liked about the episode. We'll be sure to read your review aloud during a future episode. Now let's get on with today's episode. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as the Going North Podcast, it's GMP, the great, glorious, and glamorous. We got another wonderful guest for you today, my friends. That's right indeed, courtesy of podmatch.com. That's right indeed, the site where podcast guests get to connect with podcast hosts, and if they're cool, they're freaking in. And today's guest is another one of those super special, awesome humans, because she's a fellow child of the king, y'all. That's right indeed, a fellow child of the king indeed. That's right indeed. So not only is she a published author, she's also a fellow child of the king, which she definitely appreciate here. And she's also well experienced. She's her own CEO. That's right indeed, as well as a wonderful professional with over 35 years of experience in writing, editing, business development, and managing teams indeed. So let's give it up for the SG herself, the wonderful, sensational, and generous Susan Gabriel. How you doing today, Susan?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you. Wonderful introduction.
Woohoo! That's right indeed. That's right indeed. One of the better parts of the podcast before the rabbit holes appear. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So my goodness, as with all introductions, they only cover so much, and we probably only covered, I don't know, 3 minutes of the 2,000 plus minutes of what you have to offer to the wonderful blue planet. So mind filling us in on your backstory of how you got to where you are today, since it's your first time on the show?
Oh, it's been a long journey. Very long journey. I'm old, so I've had a lot of people ask me a lot of times, why I know something or how I remember something or why I have so much stuff or lots of questions like that. And my only answer is I'm old. After you've been around a while, you start learning things, you collect things, you are a collection of every experience that you've ever had. I've had a lot of experiences, some of them really awful, which I wrote about in my book. Some of them were wonderful, and I wrote about some of those in my book. But throughout my entire lifetime, I have been guided by God, even when I didn't know it. I mean, there were many times I didn't realize it, but I've always been in his hands, in spite of the fact that there were times that I thought that he had abandoned me. One time I even tried to take my life. And the only way that I would have possibly been able to be saved from that situation was a miracle. And he came through. He wanted me to live. I told him, if you want me to live, you're going to have to perform a miracle. And he did. And so here I am. I've had a lot of really fun experiences lately. In the last few years, it's just been wonderful. The more I try to lean in to follow Jesus, the more exciting my life gets. As you mentioned, I'm a CEO now of my own publishing company called Soul Sunshine, and that's spelled SONSHINE, Son as the Son of God. And God put this thing together. It was another miracle, the way that everything came together. I had published a book, a memoir, and decided that I would publish another book. I write poetry. So I thought, well, that would be fun to publish some of my poetry. And then I thought, well, it would be really fun to put artwork to my poetry, to put, some original art, a different artist for each poem. And I thought that would really be fun. So I set about looking for artists, and I had about 140 of them respond to my request to illustrate a poem. I had so many, it was just a flood of artists, and it was exciting. It was difficult to manage at first because there were so many. I had to come up with a way to organize them all, a way to assign them, and many of these were in different countries. It turned out that I had artists from about 28 different countries. So, there were communication issues to resolve, payment issues to resolve, so many things. But when I started this process with finding artists, one thing that I felt very strongly that God was telling me, he said, pay attention to the process. That's the important part, not the end result, but the process. So I did, and I gradually got to know some of the artists on a personal level. So, I slowed down, got to know them. There were 3 or 4 of them in particular that I got to know very well. And we just started talking together. We started praying together. We met together on a regular basis. We talked about doing something more with my publishing company. They wanted to join in. They were very excited about it. So before long, I had a team of about 6 or 7 people. 3 of them are from Nigeria. One is from Sri Lanka. One is from the Philippines, and one is from California. So I have a very, very wide-ranging group of people. The youngest is 18, and they are ranging in a variety of ages. Most of them younger. All of them except one is younger than me. So it keeps me young to be with young people and to have fun with them. I have always felt like I'm not my age. I've never felt like whatever age I was, I never felt that way. But since I've been an adult, I've felt like my brain has stayed at the age of 17, and the rest of me has been, continuing to progress and get older. But my brain, I still am a 17-year-old kid. So to me, to get along with the 18-year-old is not a problem at all. We really click. And it's been really fun to get to know them on a personal level. I love psychology too. That's one of the things I really enjoy. And I enjoy personality, the study of personality. So I'm very interested in like the Myers-Briggs personality test, which I think is really fun to take. And in fact, that's one of the things I like to give to the people who are involved in our company, the people who work for us as well as our clients. And it's been very interesting because we're able to better serve the clients by knowing more about their personalities. Because when you're dealing with somebody in a virtual situation, which we all work from our homes. Nothing is done, other than from our home and in a virtual environment. So you don't get a chance to really see the person very much. Most of our discussions actually take place over chat messages. So that's not a really good way to get to know people, to really get to understand them. So we have found kind of a shortcut in Myers-Briggs that just gives us a little bit more information about the people that we work with. And I think that's one of the areas where we're different. One thing about the company that we have created is that it's unlike any other publishing company anyplace else. It could not possibly be the same as other publishing companies because this has grown up from a group of people with a passion to make this work and to come together. And we're all Christians. We all follow God, and we want the Holy Spirit to be the leader of our little team. So I get up every day and I enjoy every day getting up to do my job, which isn't really a job. It's fun. I get up to have fun every day.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right. Jesus is in charge. Oh, you love to see it. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Don't even need to be in San Diego. That's right, indeed. He's in charge, indeed. So my goodness, so with the love of poetry and creativity and putting pen to paper and having a faith-based business, my goodness, it's like a woman of many talents and a lot of wisdom indeed. So my goodness, any advice for other folks out there looking to start their own faith-based business?
Of course, the most important part is prayer. It's really looking and listening to God. Listening and trying to hear what God is saying to you sometimes can be, I think, a little tricky. And that's where it's really important to be quiet. Find that peaceful moment, that the kind of peace that you get when you're praying and meditating. And God eventually is going to speak to your heart, and give you the wisdom and the information that you need. And he says that if we ask for wisdom, we're going to get it. And I do. I mean, I don't think I'm a very all that smart person, but the wisdom that I have and in what I do is not my own. It's something that is, comes from another source. For example, sometimes I will just be quiet or kind of thinking about what I'm going to be doing that day, and a song will come into my mind. The other day, I had a song come into my mind, and the lyrics just would not leave. They just over and over and over the same lyrics. And I know that that kind of thing is, God speaking to me. He's shouting at me. But, so many times, if you are struggling to hear from God, it's because you haven't stopped long enough and relaxed long enough to allow him to enter into your spirit.
That's what I'm talking about indeed. Because, hey, definitely so true. Because God does speak. Sometimes it's not always audible. Sometimes just being them signs. It could even be a stop sign sometimes.
Yes. I've been driving down the road and turned my head and have seen a sign that was like, oh, well, that's what God wanted me to know today. It's when you're alert, those kinds of things just appear.
Oh, yeah. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So, and speaking of appearing, got this lovely memoir indeed, The Wheels of Injustice. My goodness, my goodness. And if I'm not mistaken, that stems from your background as an activist. So what led you to put pen to paper to metaphorically join the business of immortality by publishing this book?
Hmm. Well, that's an interesting situation. um, I about 5 years ago happened to be online, and I was on Twitter, in fact, and happened to run across someone who commented on something that I'd written. And we started corresponding with each other. Turns out he was a young man from Nigeria. He was very interested in learning more about my background and more about, people in the United States. And so we started writing back and forth and corresponding. And during that period of time, I told him a lot. He just wanted to hear stories. So I would just tell stories. This was all chat messages. And I would just tell him stories, different things that had happened to me. And he would say, "Well, you should write a book." And I didn't really want to do that because I had actually started a book 30 years ago, and I had to put it aside. It was about this incident that occurred, where my child was taken away by social services, and my husband was accused of sexually molesting her, which was a false accusation. And the whole situation was just so traumatizing that I tried to write about it. I decided after things had resolved that I was going to write a book about it, and I just couldn't. I wrote maybe a third of what is now in the book, and I had to put it up. So I just put it in a box, put it in the garage. I thought we had thrown it away. And then not long after I met this young man that I was writing to, and he had encouraged me to write a book, I found that manuscript and all of the paperwork from the courts in a box in the garage. And we had moved many times since then. So I had no idea that we still had that box. So I brought it in the house and I decided to take a look at it. So I started looking through it and picked it up and started writing it again. And so that was really what started it. That was why I started. That was another kind of miracle that I still had that stuff after 30 years.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. My goodness, it's kind of interesting too how sometimes you just post things online and then out of nowhere folks get curious and it's like, oh, wow, it's actually deeper than you think.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing what kind of close friendship you can have with someone that you've never met. And we're very, very close friends. And I've gotten to know a lot about Nigeria, and now Nigeria is kind of close to my heart. And that's maybe why the other two people, they're artists. The other two people on my Sunshine team are also Nigerians. And there's something special to me about the Christians in Nigeria, because it's not easy. They're living in an environment that is not necessarily accepting of Christianity. There are quite a few Christians there, and they have to be strong Christians because there are so many forces there that are ready to rip them apart. There are a lot of dangerous gangs. Traveling is not safe. There are a lot of things that they face that we don't face over here. So I have a real heart for that. And I guess maybe that's why, again, these other two friends from Nigeria, I've been able to form such a close relationship with. And I love artists. I mean, that to me, when I was asked many years ago what I would do if I was given a lot of money. And I said, I would buy an island and I would create an artist's retreat where artists could come and they could do all of their artwork there and never have to worry about making money because I would just pay their bills. So to me, I love art. I majored in art for about a year before I realized that I'm really not that talented artistically, but I am a lover of art and appreciator of art. And with it just seems to mesh really well with poetry. So that's between art and poetry and music. I guess those are really my three great loves. And of course, writing. I still do a lot of writing. So those are the kinds of things I really enjoy. And having this business, helping other authors, is really important to me. Getting their word, their story told is just a really encouraging and rewarding experience.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Well, hey, I guess with a publishing company, the dream could possibly come true, indeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right, indeed. That's
Yeah.
right, indeed.
And one of the other things that we do, because I have the artists in my company there, and I have 140 artists on my list, all different kinds of styles of artwork. We decided to specialize in providing illustrations to authors, like children's books with illustrations, or maybe cookbooks or memoirs, or varieties of different kinds of books that need illustrations. or that would really work better if they were illustrated. So that's another area that, we is really near and dear to our hearts. We have one book now that's just on the verge of being released. We've been working really hard on. That's a book about the biblical time of Moses and the plagues in Egypt. And it's told from the perspective of a 13-year-old Egyptian boy. So it's very interesting. It's a historical fiction, and we've illustrated it, and it's a beautiful, beautiful illustrations. I have two really, really talented artists that did the illustrations, and I'm really excited for it to be released. It's going to be a beautiful work of art.
Woohoo! That's what I'm talking about. Indeed, beautiful piece of art. Indeed, that's right. Indeed, something for the kids. That's right. Indeed, that's right.
Yes,
Indeed.
it's going to be geared towards teenagers, and I think it's going to be a really inspiring book. They should really enjoy it.
There we go. Susan loves the kids, y'all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I wrote three children's books as well. So yeah, they're that children's books are really fun. And that's another area that, it's so much fun there's so many different kinds of illustrations, different ways to illustrate children's books, and different kinds of messages you can get across to children through characters. My three books it's a series of books about a little dog named Button. It was based on a dog that I owned at one time that was named Button. And Button, in the first book, she learns how to get along well with her playmates at home. She has a mouse and a cat that she plays with, and she learns how to play nicely, basically. And then she goes to school and learns how to sit and how to stay, and she meets other dogs there who are making fun of one of the other dogs that's kind of slow. So Button tells them, would you like to be made fun of? And if you would not like to be treated that way, then don't treat people. Don't treat other dogs that way. And then she taught them the golden rule. So do unto others as you would have others do unto you. So that was the lesson that she taught the other dogs. And of course, hopefully the lesson that the children would learn from it as well.
Good deal indeed. That's right. Indeed, getting them lessons in them kids. That's right. Indeed.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, so since you've been on a bit of a podcast tour promoting the good work that you're doing, is there a question that you wish you'd be asked more often when you're on these podcasts?
No, because I usually get in everything I want to say.
That's what I'm talking about. Getting in where you fit in, indeed. So, my
Yep.
goodness, so since you're a fellow child of the King, usually invite fellow Christians to share their salvation testimony of how they became Christians to encourage other folks maybe listening or for those maybe curious. So my goodness, how'd you come to know Jesus as your Savior?
Yeah, I'd be happy to tell that story. I was raised in a Lutheran church. So my parents took me to church every Sunday. I was baptized as a baby. I went through confirmation classes when I was 13. And in confirmation classes, if anybody's not familiar, you learn a lot of the Bible. You have to memorize large portions of scripture in order to pass the confirmation classes. And that's over a 2-year period. So by the time I was 15 or 16 or so, had a lot of the Bible already kind of stuffed into my memory. And I am so grateful for that, because there were so many times that a Bible verse would just come floating to my head that would be, again, it's something, a way I felt like God was speaking to me. But I wasn't really always what I would consider to be that close to Jesus. I didn't have the kind of personal relationship that I have now, but I wanted to. I just didn't seem to be able to find my way there. I had a lot of difficulty with depression when I was a teenager, and then I got married young. I had a child just a year after I was married, so I was 19 and had my first baby. Um, I married the first person who asked me to marry him, so we really weren't very well matched. So it was a difficult marriage. I had two children, two daughters, a difficult marriage, was really struggling. And I, again, was trying really hard to find God. I wanted to find him. I thought that was what I needed to do, was to try to find him. And the marriage fell apart after 15 years. I was married for 15 years, and then we ended up getting a divorce. It was difficult. And then I met my second husband, and 6 weeks after we met was when I was called by the Department of Social Services, told to come down to their office, that they had my younger daughter and that my husband had molested her. And when I showed up down there, I said, well, what are you talking about? And I said, what did he do? And they said, well, he tickled her. And I said, what are you talking about? And they said, well, I said, where did he tickle her? And they said, well, on the stomach area and on the knee. And nothing they said was really making any sense. It didn't sound anything like molestation, and he definitely was not the type. We had only been married 6 weeks, but I knew him really well. And the whole thing was just did not make any sense. And they didn't do any kind of investigation. They just took her. They put her into foster care. I was beside myself. They told me that I needed to kick my husband out of the house, or I would never be able to have my daughter back in the home again. But we consulted a lawyer and a psychiatrist, and they said not to have him leave the home, that the social services and the prosecutor's office would view that as an admission of guilt, that I believed that he was guilty. And so they said, don't do it. If he's not guilty, don't do it. So he didn't leave. He offered to. I said, no, I don't think we should do that. So it took me 3 years to get my daughter back. My husband was charged with a felony that carried a penalty of 16 years in prison. This was when I cracked, and I was trying to find God. And I cracked. I drove up into the mountains west of Colorado Springs, where we lived, and I found a very isolated place. I had brought pills with me and a wine cooler, and I took the pills. I took definitely enough pills to kill myself. I laid down and I said, God, I just can't take this anymore. I don't know what to do anymore. I've ruined everything. Everything I do, just nothing seems to work. Nothing is right. And I said, if you want me to live, you're going to have to do something. And I laid down to die, and I passed out, and I didn't die. He performed a miracle. The next thing I remember was sitting on the curb in front of a grocery store. And if you want to know what happened, you'll have to buy my book. So, but he did save me. And I also got to a point where this did not stop. This was before the trial even started. We went through trial. He was found not guilty. I'll give you that piece of information. He was found not guilty. And in fact, the jurors, they came up to us afterwards and they hugged us, and they had tears in their eyes, and they said, we're so sorry you had to go through this. You know, it was so obvious that we were being persecuted rather than prosecuted. So he was then acquitted, and I thought I would get my daughter back, but I did not get my daughter back. they decided to continue to pursue charges against me, claiming that I did not protect her from abuse. Now, there was no abuse, but they said just because he was found not guilty doesn't mean he's innocent. So we're going to continue because you did not kick him out of the home. You
Wow.
did not believe us. You did not protect her. So that was their story, and they continued to pursue it and take me to trial. And during this period of time, I got pregnant. And Clark and I, my husband and I, were very excited about that, but still, I was still really on edge over the whole thing. I thought, are they going to take the new baby away? What are they going to do? And 3 days before the trial was supposed to take place with the social services, I went to the doctor for a checkup, and he told me the baby had died. So they arranged to have the baby, removed, and I reached the total bottom. I mean, at that point, I was at absolute bottom, and I signed away my rights. I had just given up at that point. I gave up my daughter to my ex-husband, and so he took full custody of her, and I was not allowed to have her in the home at all. They told us that if we went to therapy with a particular therapist, that we could potentially someday maybe, have some more visitations with her. But I reached bottom. I said, God, I don't believe in you anymore. I am finished. I don't believe you. I don't believe you exist. I don't think you care about me. I'm done. And so I stopped praying. I stopped believing. I stopped everything. I said, if you're there, you're going to have to prove it. So over the next few months and years, he very gradually started to prove to me that he existed, and that he was there, and that he loved me and cared about me. And during this period of time was when the activism started. I was so angry at the Department of Social Services and the prosecutor's office and everyone that was involved. I wanted to tell the world that this was going on, because I didn't want it to happen to other people. So I started writing letters. I got on to talk shows. I started speaking out. I was interviewed by magazines. I was interviewed by TV programs, local TV, local radio. And we were interviewed to be in a magazine, national magazine article. We were interviewed to be in a book. We started a nonprofit organization. We realized there were other people in the same situation, so we started banding together, and we had a convention where we invited guest speakers, speakers who had seen this in other states. This wasn't just, isolated to Colorado. It was all over the country. People were being falsely accused, children taken away with no kind of investigation. And so I became an activist. I didn't shut up. I just kept going. And we finally got to the point, I guess the highlight of the activism came when we were invited to be on the Today Show and to tell our story for the Today Show, in conjunction with this book where we had appeared in one of the chapters, where the author had written about our story. So but through that activism during that period of time, that was when God started to show me things. Just, I would be thinking about something and wondering if, like, for example, are we ever going to be able to uncover all of this stuff? Are we ever going to be able to expose what they did? And then all of a sudden, I would out of the blue see a Bible verse printed someplace that said that something about things, nothing will remain hidden, all will be made known. And I thought, well, that's exactly what I want. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. And so that is exactly what happened. Eventually, we were asked to be on a task force to change the laws, to write new laws. So we did that. And the laws in Colorado were then used by some of the other states for their laws in rewriting, because that was really the problem, was the way the laws were written that allowed things like this to happen. And social services they had um, a vested interest in having open cases because they got funding based on how many cases they had open. But here's the funny thing out of all of that, I became friends with the Department of Social Services director, and we are friends to this day. And he's a wonderful Christian man. He didn't really know that this stuff was going on. He was new to the department. He had no idea. When my husband and I told him, we talked to him about it. We said, we have to tell you what's going on and find out what you're going to do about it. Well, he started a quality assurance program after that. It took him a while to believe us that it was really happening. But after so many of the other people in our group talked to him as well, then he started believing it. And like I said, he's a wonderful man, wonderful Christian. He has his own group that he Bible study group that he takes care of those people. And I consider him sort of a spiritual advisor. But to go from hating DSS, from being so angry at God and at everyone, to forgiving everyone who was involved, and to even being good friends with someone who was previously my enemy. Only God could have turned that around. He's the only one who could have softened my heart enough to forgive people. So that's my story.
And she's sticking to it like glue indeed.
Yep. Yep. And ever since, I have just had a close relationship with God, and I wake up every day and ask, what do you want me to do today?
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about indeed. And glad you're able to overcome that situation and help others to do the same, because that's insane. Like, what the heck, man? It's like,
Yeah.
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 And again, the good book does say Christians got to go through persecution all here on earth. So,
Yes, that's for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
right, indeed. Well, fun question for you. If your book, Wheels of Injustice, if that book were a food, what would it be and why?
Would it be a food? I would say it would probably be uh, a uh, a very hot and spicy enchilada. Lots of cheese, lots of hot sauce, and some avocado just to cool it off a little bit.
There you go. Skirt. That's right. To cool it off. That's right, indeed. That's right. From the whole burnout donut experience of the Wheels of Injustice. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Enchilada. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. There will be times we have to make friends with a certain area in the home. Bring your Kleenex boxes. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed.
Oh, it's wonderful to be able to laugh over something that I have suffered so much over, and now it doesn't hurt anymore, and it's just wonderful.
That's what I'm talking about right there, indeed. Well, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive. And that is, if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but you're still in 2023, what advice would you give to yourself?
I would tell myself to enjoy that 25-year-old body, because you're never going to have it again.
Yep, it's true. Yep, that's right, indeed. That's right. Good old healthy aging. That's right. That's right,
Yeah,
indeed.
yeah. Arthritis and all that stuff just creeps up, and yeah, those 25-year-old bodies are really something to enjoy when you have it.
Exactly. Less chances of the check engine light popping up.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. I think my check engine light is still on. It stays on all the time. I don't know how to shut it off.
Well, I know folks need to check out the light known as your website and keep up with your journey. So, for those need to do just that, what's the best way for folks to do so?
I think the best way is to check out my website is kind of under construction at the moment, but we're rebuilding it. The address is soulsunshine.com, and that's soulsonshine.com. And if you want to write to me, books at soulsunshine.com is an email address that just comes straight to me. So that's probably the easiest way.
Woohoo! Well, there you have it, folks. Reach out to the shiny Susan herself. That's right, indeed. Check out all of her wonderful books on her wonderful website. Cop all of them. That's right, indeed. She's got stuff for everybody, for the grown-ups and the kids, indeed. And check out some of the other stuff that her company is cooking. That's right, indeed. It's good stuff. Good stuff for the mind. That's right, indeed. Wordsmith artistry, ahoy, indeed. That's right, indeed. Maybe even more ahoy than all the chocolate chips. That's right, indeed. That's right,
Yeah. Yes. Uh,
Well, any parting words before we close up shop?
uh, well, if anyone who thinks they want to write a book, come and talk to us because we're happy to help you from the beginning to the end of your journey with writing a book, illustrating if it needs it, getting it published, marketing it for you and helping you with that. Whatever you need, we're here to help out.
If you're hearing this part of the episode, that means you're one cool individual. Thanks a bunch for tuning in, and if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to share it with at least one other person in your network. Bonus points for 3. And be sure to check out the backlog too while you're at it, because there are hundreds of wonderful episodes to choose from as well.